Lights, camera, action.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, guys.
Welcome back to the podcast. We are officially on episode 3. Can't hardly believe it, but I'm so excited that you guys are joining us today, and we are covering not one, but 2 movies today. We are covering both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. We're going to be comparing the 2. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of run through all of the details about Jurassic Park, and then I'll transition over to Jurassic World. So first, Jurassic Park was released June 11th, 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Richard Attenborough. Is that how you say it, John?
It's close enough.
Attenborough? Okay. Distributed by...
Fun fact.
Sorry.
His brother narrates all like the Planet Earth shows and whatnot.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
David Attenborough.
So it was distributed by Universal Pictures. Runtime was 2 hours and 6 minutes. It was rated PG-13. The budget was $63 million, and box office total was $1.046 billion.
That was the box office total?
Yes, it was.
Back in 93?
Well, so I didn't write this down, but it was re-released at one point, so it's including that as well.
That makes sense. I was going to say 1.3 bill in 93, that's a lot of stinking money.
Yes. So, transitioning to Jurassic World. Jurassic World was released June 12th, 2015. June must be the time to release movies, because that's when Pirates was released too.
Well,
and Jurassic Park and Jurassic World.
It's when like big blockbuster movies are released, because that's when they're like most marketable.
Gotcha. Okay. So it was directed by Colin Trevorrow, starring...
This is Jurassic World?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Starring Bryce Dallas Howard, Chris Pratt, Nick Robinson, and Ty Simpkins. Distributed also by Universal Pictures. Runtime was 2 hours and 4 minutes. It was rated PG-13. Budget was $264.5 million, and box office total was $1.671 billion.
Wow. I actually remember it making $1 billion because it was released back in 15. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So that was when the MCU was in its heyday. I mean, it's still doing well, but it's actually on a major downturn right now.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a time in Hollywood history where basically nobody felt like they could compete with Marvel until Jurassic World came out. It was one of the first movies to make $1 billion outside of Marvel.
Interesting.
Yep. Okay, what else we got?
Well, I have some casting details and fun facts. Do you want me to jump into those now, or do you want to go through some production details first?
No, let's hear some fun facts.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth with casting and fun facts. So I'm going to start out with Jurassic Park. I really didn't find a ton about Jurassic World. Ton
about Jurassic World for
fun facts or casting details.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that it's partially because there's so many Jurassic Park movies and Jurassic World movies. It was hard to find some specifically for this one.
Well, Jurassic World is less than 10 years old too.
Yes,
so
that too.
That's probably part of it, but yeah. Okay, cool. Let's hear it.
Yeah, okay. So, 2 things about the character John Hammond. First, as you know, it was played by Richard Attenborough. And John Hammond's character... before I say this, those of you who don't know, Jurassic Park the movie was based off of a book.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you know what the book was called?
Yeah, it was called Jurassic Park. So I actually cover a decent amount of details about, I mean, not a lot, but I talk about the book and production details.
Okay. So basically, all I was going to say is that the character John Hammond was described by Michael Crichton, Who?
Michael Crichton.
He's
the author of
yes.
Jurassic Park?
Yes, he's the author of Jurassic Park. John Hammond, the character, was described by the author as a dark Walt Disney. That's how he wanted him to be portrayed, kind of.
Okay.
So Also, for the character John Hammond, this is a casting detail as well. There were lots of people considered for lots of the roles here, so I just kind of went through and like highlighted a few. So for John Hammond, some people who were considered to play that character were Clint Eastwood.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Clint Eastwood?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Marlon Brando.
Okay.
And Sean Connery.
Okay. I did know about Sean Connery.
Yes.
Yeah. Huh.
So, you know what? Let me just do all the casting details now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, like I said, tons of people were considered, so I'm just going to go through a few. So other actors considered to play Dr. Grant were Dennis Quaid, Mel Gibson,
yep,
Henry Ford, Kurt Russell, and Robin Williams.
I could see all of those being good casting options.
Yes,
for
I agree.
Dr. Grant.
Yeah. And then other actors that were considered for Dr. Sadler would be Julia Roberts.
Okay.
And Sandra Bullock.
Yeah. I think either of those would have been fine.
Yes, I agree. And then last main character I'll go through is Ian Malcolm.
Uh-huh.
Others considered were Jim Carrey.
Yep.
Michael Keaton.
Yep.
And Johnny Depp.
Wow, I didn't know Johnny Depp was. I did know about Jim Carrey, and I'm sure he would have done fine. I'm not a major Jim Carrey fan, but yeah, he would not be my first choice for Malcolm. But I'm also not a big Jeff Goldblum fan, so.
Well, I thought he played the character
very
well.
But he did play Ian Malcolm well, I agree.
Yes. Okay, so that's all the casting details I had. So do you want me to just run through all of my fun facts right now?
Yeah, let's hear him.
Okay.
For both movies. I will say I have one fun fact for each movie.
Okay, cool. So first fun fact was that the filming was originally on a Hawaiian island.
Yes.
I did not write the name down, but 3 weeks in, a hurricane hit and decimated the island along with the Jurassic Park sets. So they had to resume production at Universal in LA. But when the storm hit, Steven Spielberg took the director of photography to film the hurricane. So some of those videos actually made it into the movie. So for example, like the big waves crashing against Isla Nublar is actually hurricane footage.
Really?
Yes.
Huh, I didn't know that.
And then most of the dinosaurs were CGI, but a couple of them were animatronic or like partial animatronic, partial CGI.
Yep.
So the Triceratops actually was pretty much fully animatronic.
This is the sick one that
Yes.
Dr. Sadler is helping?
Yes, thank you for filling that in.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, so
I think that's actually the only Triceratops in Jurassic Park, the first movie.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So they actually dug a hole beneath it because it's laying down in that scene.
Okay.
And had 8 puppeteers operating it from underneath. And then there were also 4 people operating it from the inside. There was a little back door on it.
Yeah.
And so 4 people got inside and were animating or operating from the inside.
Yeah.
So it was a 12-man job, basically.
Yeah.
But then the T-Rex was also animatronic. It weighed 15,000 pounds and it was remote controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so big that they had to basically make a hole in the ceiling of the set.
Yeah.
And it was raining one day.
Yep.
And it started to rain on this T-Rex and the T-Rex started to like malfunction. So it wouldn't even be on, but the rain would mess up the, technology inside of it.
Uh-huh.
So it would start moving on its own and it freaked people out. But apparently since it's so big and heavy, like if they weren't careful, like if it whipped its head around or something, like it could have killed somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and say this now.
Yeah, go for it.
The entire production of this movie, and like the dinosaurs, all the special effects, everything is a major, I don't know what you say, like a major gold star to Industrial Lights and Magic. This is one of their stellar movies. All the visual effects in this movie still hold up today. And everything that we cover on like the effects that they did, because I'm going to talk about some of that in my section, we're just barely scraping the surface. So if that stuff interests you, like it does me, you should definitely check out on Disney Plus. There is a Industrial Lights and Magic documentary. I think it's literally just called Industrial Lights and Magic.
Yes.
And it is phenomenal. They have like almost an entire episode dedicated purely to Jurassic Park. So go check out that episode. But it is a phenomenal documentary on the history of ILM and like how they completely changed Hollywood and the film industry in general. But anyways, just a little plug there for Disney Plus, who's not a sponsor, but we will welcome you if you want to be.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
Okay, so I just have one more about Jurassic Park. So, Jurassic Park, the book, before it was even published, studios were bidding on who would get to make the movie because they just really loved the concept.
Yeah, so I actually cover a little bit of that in my production details.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead, but there's some interesting stuff with that.
The only thing I was going to tell you was what studios were bidding on it.
Okay.
Okay, so Warner Brothers, or Warner Bros, wanted to have it, and they wanted Tim Burton to direct it. Columbia wanted it and wanted Richard Donner to direct it. 20th Century Fox wanted Joe Dante to direct it. And Universal obviously won the bidding with Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
So that's all the Jurassic Park facts that I had. Did you want to throw your one Jurassic Park fact in there too?
Yes. So the fun fact I have for Jurassic Park is that in the original book, Michael Crichton was actually very specific about what the tour cars, not the Jeeps that they drive around the island, but the tour cars like that the kids are in and whatnot that are on the track that take you to the exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
He was very specific about the like make and model in the book. So originally in the book, those were electric powered Toyota Land Cruisers. However, during the production of like the pre-production part of the movie, Steven Spielberg struck a deal with Ford and had 7 Ford Explorers custom made to be the tour vehicles. And in order to give the illusion of like an autonomous tour vehicle that's on a track, because they didn't want to take the time to make a track or anything like that, they just took the Ford Explorers, modified them so that it doesn't look like there's a driver on the inside, but there actually is, and he's just hidden and sitting inside the trunk. Yeah.
Cool.
So you got fun facts on Jurassic World now?
Yes, they're not nearly as interesting in my opinion because I really had trouble finding some.
That's okay.
But so I'll just go through these really fast. I don't have quite as many.
Okay.
So, one was that they shot some of the scenes, like since Jurassic Park is like basically a theme park, the scenes that look like a theme park with all of the people around and things that are usually shot from above, those were shot at a set that they had built in an abandoned Six Flags in New Orleans.
Yep.
Another one, which John, you know this already. They actually increased the size of the velociraptors like quite a bit. In real life, they were closer to the size of a turkey. So
yep. So that's like they did that in every Jurassic Park movie. So the raptors that you see in every single Jurassic Park movie, with the exception of the newest one, Jurassic World Dominion, every single raptor they refer to as a velociraptor, but it's actually a Utah raptor. They chose to use the Utah raptor because it is the biggest of all the raptors. However, they said velociraptor instead because it sounded more menacing. But yeah, you're right. An actual velociraptor is like a little bit higher than knee height. Like they're not very big.
right.
Yeah.
So this is kind of just a connection between the two movies. The gyrosphere scene, where the two boys are rolling through the jungle,
brothers,
was actually shot in a jungle in Hawaii too.
Okay.
So both movies had some shooting in Hawaii.
Nice.
And then another one is that the production designers of Jurassic World actually based the control room set off of NASA's control room. So they were wanting to base it off of like just a regular theme park control room, but they got really disappointed when they saw that it was like really just a couple computers and that was it. So they decided that they wanted it to look a little more elaborate and a little more interesting. So they decided to base it off of NASA's control room.
Interesting.
And then the last one is that the motorcycle that Chris Pratt rode in the movie was gifted to him at the end of it.
Yes. So I have one fun fact for Jurassic World as well. So the main villain or bad guy, bad dinosaur, whatever you want to say, in Jurassic World is the Indominus Rex, which is like a lab created dinosaur. It was never like historically a dinosaur on this earth. It's just genetically modified. And the idea for that actually came from Jurassic Park: The Lost World, but not Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the movie, Jurassic Park: The Lost World, the book. So Jurassic Park: The Lost World was written by Michael Crichton as a sequel to the original Jurassic Park book. And in that book, you have a dinosaur that can camouflage itself and hunts people and whatnot. And so that's kind of where the original idea for the Indominus Rex started.
Cool.
Yep. So, all right. Do you have anything else before I jump into production details?
That is all I got.
Okay, cool. Well, I will start with Jurassic Park first then. So, you kind of touched on this earlier, but the movie Jurassic Park is based on a book, which is also called Jurassic Park, which was written by Michael Crichton. The book released in November 20th, 1990, but Spielberg actually first became interested in making a Jurassic Park movie before the book had even come out. So I forgot to write it down, but I think it was back in 89. Spielberg and Michael Crichton had met about a screenplay that Crichton had wrote. So Crichton was pitching Spielberg the idea for this screenplay, which that screenplay actually later went on to become the TV show ER. But during this pitch, Spielberg learned about Crichton's idea for like a dinosaur theme park. And Spielberg quickly became pretty enthralled with the idea, specifically because the idea that Crichton had for bringing the dinosaurs back into the world in this book was that, you're going to have the mosquitoes that are fossilized in amber, and mosquitoes got the blood from dinosaurs, and so they still had dinosaur DNA, and they retrieved the DNA that way. And so Spielberg said he felt like it was a really credible look at how dinosaurs might someday actually be brought back alongside modern mankind. And this is just a side note here, but this was such a compelling idea that this was actually tested on Mythbusters, where they met up with some genetic researchers and whatnot, and they had fossilized mosquitoes that would have likely had dinosaur DNA in their blood and whatnot. It turned out to be impossible. Now, whether that's like a limit of technology or a cover-up or, whatever else you want to say, it's neither here nor there. What the public knows is that it was impossible. However, I will say that in recent years, scientists have not just been trying, but are actually debating bringing mastodons and woolly mammoths back into the world because we have enough DNA to bring them back. We're just at the point of like, it's an ethical discussion. Yeah. So anyways, little sidebar there, but moving on. So Spielberg learned about this back in 89, was kind of chewing on this idea and didn't really get anywhere. But he did go back to Universal and let them know that this is something he wanted to do. So you did touch on this already. But Crichton knew that he was kind of sitting on a gold mine here, that he was going to have film rights for this book. So they started negotiating in the same year that the book was released in 1990. So Crichton had a demand. It was non-negotiable. He wanted a fee of $1.5 million for the film rights and an undisclosed percentage of the film profits in perpetuity. So Warner Brothers and Tim Burton bid on it. Columbia Pictures, 20th Century Fox, they all put up a bid for it. but it was, as you already said, Universal Studios who ended up getting the rights for Spielberg. So that was in May 1990. So once they acquired the rights, Spielberg and company started production. Although he was actually a busy man, so he started production on Jurassic Park, but also started production on Schindler's List at the same time. So he was working on both those movies simultaneously, going from one set to another. And Universal pretty much told him, said, hey, you have to finish Jurassic Park first, and we'll let you direct this movie because you're already starting production on Schindler's List, but we want this movie out first. So he agreed, production started, and the pre-production process lasted a whopping 25 months. They were in pre-production for over 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of that was due to creating a good script, as well as getting a good cast together. But the majority of the time spent was due to trying to figure out how to film the dinosaurs, because that's the main focus point of the film. And Spielberg has a lot of integrity. He wants his work to mean something, so he wanted it to look good. So Steven Spielberg reached out to his buddy, George Lucas. I'm sure you all know who George Lucas is, but if you don't, he's the guy who created Star Wars, but he also is the founder of Industrial Lights and Magic. So he reached out to George to see if ILM would be willing to do the visual effects for the movie. And so, like, thinking about that today, like, it's a no-brainer because ILM is the industry standard. They pretty much do everything. There are only a couple other production companies that are on the same level as them, Weta Digital being like the biggest one. But back in this time, ILM was very new, and it only worked for George Lucas and his movies because he was the founder of the company. But slowly over time, he kind of started opening up the, like, taking work essentially for his friends and that were other filmmakers, and then eventually ended up just being a visual effects company for the entire industry. But anyways, Spielberg reached out to George. George said that they would do it. So when they were kind of brainstorming how they were going to approach everything, Spielberg thought that they would just do life-size animatronics for everything. The idea for this kind of came from Universal Studios. They have a ride that has a life-size animatronic King Kong. So he was thinking, yeah, we could hire the guy that made that and we'll do this. But then he quickly realized that there are some dinosaurs that are just way too big. It would be too costly, or it would be too heavy. The biggest one that they ended up making was the T-Rex, but you have things like the Brachiosaurus, like that thing would have been absolutely massive, and they probably had like 6 or 7 of them in the movie. Mm-hmm. It would just not have been realistic. So they quickly tried to figure out what else they could do. So they decided that some of the dinosaurs were going to be animatronic, but that the other ones were going to be go motion, and it was going to be overseen by ILM's Phil Tippett. So go motion is very similar to stop motion, the only difference being that in between takes, you're digitally adding motion blur so that it looks a little more realistic. So Spielberg put Phil Tippett in charge of the go motion. And again, Phil Tippett works for ILM. Most people probably don't know who he is, but he was the industry standard in stop motion or go motion. And he's the guy that made all the stop motion in Star Wars look so good. So he was put in charge of it. They did lots of test footage, and Spielberg reviewed it and decided this is not going to cut it. So they got their backs up against the wall. They don't really know what to do with themselves. But one man, Dennis Murin, overhears this, who also works for ILM. He's a computer compositor, so he would be adding like motion blur in between takes and stuff like that. He worked with visual effects at ILM, and he overheard this and went and pitched the idea to Spielberg. He said, "Hey, I think we can do this with CGI." So Spielberg agreed. He said, "I want you to create some test footage and, we'll go from there." So he created the footage. It was basically just like a 10-second cycle of a T-Rex running. And he did a test screening with Spielberg and some of the other executives. And important detail, Phil Tippett was also present for the test screening. So they roll the footage, and while it's playing, Spielberg leans over to Tippett and he says, "You're out of a job." And Tippett replies, "Don't you mean extinct?" And it was a really great moment there. I mean, it was really hard for Tippett because this was kind of going to be his swan song. But Spielberg recalled this moment and that the quick-witted response of Tippett, and he actually wrote it into the movie, into Jurassic Park, that is. So when Ian Malcolm and Dr. Grant go onto Jurassic Park and they pull up and John Hammond says, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." They see the Brachiosaurus and everything. Malcolm leans over to Dr. Grant and says the very same thing. He says, "You're out of a job," because Dr. Grant is a paleontologist. And Grant says, "Don't you mean extinct?" So little fun fact there. So in addition to the CGI, they also, and animatronics, they also decided that they were going to use a new technology and that they were going to create for the film. It was called the Dinosaur Input Device, or the DID. So it was essentially an animatronic, except it had a lot of chips and processors that were put into it that would track the movement of the dinosaur. So once the animatronic moved, it would input that movement into a computer and simultaneously create a CGI animation model. So this was like a really, really rudimentary analog version of motion capture back in the 90s. So pretty cool thing there. But once they had all that figured out, they knew that they could start. So filming began on August 24th, 1992. A lot of the movie was shot in Hawaii, but as you said, there was a hurricane, so they had to move to a soundstage back in California. And fun fact here, Samuel L. Jackson's character was actually supposed to shoot a lengthy scene where his character died as he was being chased by raptors.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the hurricane, the set piece that they had for that scene was completely destroyed. So that scene just got completely cut out. Yeah. And that's actually all the production details I have on Jurassic Park. Now, moving on to Jurassic World. So Jurassic World would be the fourth movie in the Jurassic Park franchise. And a fourth movie for Jurassic Park was actually planned as early as 2001. Yeah. But due to several script rewrites, directors quitting, writers not having good scripts, scheduling conflicts, the movie never actually started taking shape until 2011, 2013, somewhere in that neighborhood. Prior to 2011, there were loads of different ideas that were tossed around for what direction the franchise should go in. One of the most bizarre ideas was that the main antagonists for the fourth film should be mercenaries that were dinosaur-human hybrids.
I did read that. I don't think I'd watch that movie.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say. I'm really thankful that never it never came to fruition, because I feel like it would have been a really big departure for the franchise and just kind of stupid, honestly. But anyways, in early drafts of the script, the original cast of Jurassic Park was all set to return. However, as the film was being developed, and as you said, director Colin Trevorrow for Jurassic World, as he was brought on, he did not want to bring back the original cast unless he felt like it was for good reason. So what he decided to do was to bring back B.D. Wong, who plays Dr. Henry Wu in both the original Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And he's essentially the head scientist in charge of the genetics and bringing the dinosaurs back to life. So a nice little nod to the fans of the original series there. Principal photography began on April 10th, 2014 in Hawaii. So as you said, they did shoot on Hawaii in both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. They did build several practical set pieces, which included the Mosasaurus feeding show, which that's like the big, massive water dinosaur where they dangle the shark. That like whole area, the feeding show area, that was a practical set. The raptor enclosure was a practical set, and as well as the Indominus Rex enclosure. And you already hit on this a little bit, but the main street, the boardwalk, all those areas of like a real theme park, so to speak, that was constructed in the parking lot of an abandoned Six Flags in New Orleans. And then last bit of details on Jurassic World. So we've jumped quite a few years ahead in the future from when the original Jurassic Park came out. Original Jurassic Park came out when, it was
1993.
93. So 93 to 2015. In 2015, well, actually they were working on this in 2013, 2014. They decided that the majority of the dinosaurs were going to be CGI. However, they did want to stick to their roots, and they did have a couple alternative filming methods in there. So there was one animatronic dinosaur in the movie that was an Apatosaurus, which is the long-necked dinosaur that the Indominus Rex is killing for sport. There's a really touching moment where Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's character find like a field of like, I don't know, 10 of them just dead. That dinosaur is animatronic. And they also used maquettes, which are maquettes. I don't know how you say it. They're like essentially statues or kind of like rough draft stand-ins. They used those for raptors as well as motion capture with actual actors for the raptors. And that is all I have on production details.
Yeah, so I wanted to say this earlier, but I didn't want to cut you off. But one thing that I did find online that I didn't say earlier is, so like you said, Jurassic World was the fourth movie in the Jurassic Park, collection of movies.
Yeah.
And those of you who have watched Parks and Rec, John, you might have seen this too.
Yeah.
But Chris Pratt is in Parks and Rec, and he kind of like, I don't know, like predicted almost that he was going to be in Jurassic World because it's in, I don't remember what episode. I've only seen Parks and Rec like one time through, but there's a scene where he has his cell phone out and he says that he got a text from Steven Spielberg that he was going to be cast in Jurassic Park 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually remember that now that you say that.
Yeah, so just kind of a cool detail there.
Yeah, it was prophetic.
Yes.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, cool. Well, normally at this point in the podcast, we would start covering story beats and parts that we liked and didn't like. But since we're doing two movies, that would just be too much. So this is going to be really loose, kind of bare bones, more of a conversation. Just kind of comparing the two. So let's start out with what we did last episode. For Jurassic Park, let's do a 1 to 100. How would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 100?
I don't know. I would have to say maybe like I don't know if I can decide on a specific number. I'm thinking like anywhere between like a 89 to like a 92 maybe.
Okay. I can feel that. If I was going to do a range, I would probably say the same thing. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a 91.
Awesome.
Yep. So how would you rate Jurassic World? Same scale.
I really like both movies. I think I like Jurassic Park a little bit more, but the question is how much more. I'd say Jurassic World I would maybe give like a 83.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it's definitive or not.
Okay. That's fair. I would say that out of the two, I definitely like Jurassic Park better. However, I think I'd probably rate it a little higher than that. I don't think it's amazing. Not on the same level as Jurassic Park, but I will say like maybe an 86, 87. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. I'll give it the higher. I'll 87 for Jurassic World.
Maybe I'll raise mine a couple points. Let's say 85.
Okay. Are you just copying me?
Maybe. I thought it was really cool just because usually when I watch these movies, I just watch them in order. So I'll do like Jurassic Park, the first one, and all the Jurassic Park movies, and then move to Jurassic World. I thought it was cool because John and I watch each movie right before we do the podcast, just so we have it fresh in our brain.
Yep.
So I thought it was cool to kind of switch it up a bit and watch the first Jurassic Park and then the first Jurassic World back to back. Just because there were a lot more connections than I think I usually notice.
Yeah.
So, like there's so many that we probably don't even have time to go through them all. But even just like the little ones, like, when the brothers are running from like into like just trying to take shelter from the
Indominus Rex.
Yeah, I'm always scared I'm gonna mispronounce it. Indominus Rex.
It's okay if you do.
And they go into the original building from Jurassic Park, and they see like the sign on the ground that's like when dinosaurs ruled the earth and all that stuff. But like just like the little callbacks from like that banner, and then when what's the little brother's name?
Oh, I can't remember his name. Yeah.
But when he like gets those goggle things out.
Yeah, the night vision goggles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's like a callback to the first movie when the other little brother that I can't remember the name of.
Yeah.
Finds
Tim.
those in Tim.
Yeah, Tim in Jurassic Park. I remember that.
When he finds those in the Jeep and that kind of stuff.
Ford Explorer.
Yes, Ford Explorer. Ford Explorer was also called back too.
Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't. It was the Jeep.
Yep. Sorry, mixed them up.
Yep. No, yeah, there were a lot of callbacks. Definitely things that I never picked up on. I mean, I picked up on a lot of the ones that you listed because I feel like those were the ones that were like very obvious, meant to be picked up on. But there were just things like for instance, I never realized that one of the main plot points in Jurassic Park, the two kids, their parents are getting a divorce and they're coming to the park, and then they are kind of looking for like a father figure and whatnot. And that very same thing happens in Jurassic World, except they're like way more obvious about it being like two kids who are their parents are getting a divorce. That it's actually brought up in the movie like 3 times. Mm-hmm. And they kind of are looking for a father figure with Chris Pratt and whatnot. So that right there, something I never picked up on. But watching these movies back to back, just something fun little detail I don't think I would have gotten otherwise. Because I've seen both of these movies dozens of times. But yeah, there are parts that I like about both, parts that I don't like. I think the only reason that I would say Jurassic World can be compared to Jurassic Park in terms of like which one's better, I think most people are in agreement that Jurassic Park is better film. However, the reason it can even be like contested, I think, is just because Jurassic World recaptures a lot of the magic that the first movie did in a different way. That being that in Jurassic World, you have an actual functioning theme park.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was actually one of Spielberg's mandates when they were trying to figure out the movie. As time went on and they got closer to like that 2011 time period, Spielberg had 3 mandates for the film. He said it had to be about a human eating dinosaur that got loose. That was one of them. It also had to have a fully functioning theme park. And I cannot remember for the life of me what the third one is. I apologize. So anyways,
Yeah, so this is kind of backtracking just a little bit, but one other connection that I'm sure a lot of people picked up on, but it was just touching, was in the Jurassic Park movie when they first get to the island, they're kind of driving around, and then there's a triceratops that we talked about before that's lying on the ground. That's clearly something's wrong with it. And then in the second movie, is it a brachiosaurus? Is that what it's called? Or
Are
is
you
it?
talking about the animatronic?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean it's an apatosaurus,
Oh, apatosaurus.
but it's a long neck dinosaur like
Yes,
the brachiosaurus.
yes.
Yeah.
So, and then that one's laying on the ground, and obviously that one is a little more of a severe injury for, but
Yeah.
that scene makes me cry every time.
Yeah,
But-
it actually does. This is probably the first time I didn't shed a tear when watching Jurassic World. I think because we watched it fairly recently prior to this. But yeah, that scene where the Brachiosaurus is dying, or Apatosaurus, that usually makes me shed a tear.
Yeah. So that's just another connection between the two also.
Oh yeah, just a little callback there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got what else? What comes to mind? What did you like about Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really love almost all of the actors that are in that movie, so I think that
Yeah.
really helped a lot. And of course, it's a Steven Spielberg film, and he is a world-renowned director. Like,
Yeah,
he does
phenomenal.
an amazing job. So I don't know that there's really anything that's like that sticks out to me like, oh, this is what I love about it. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just like the suspense and that kind of thing. Like, in so many of the scenes, like the one where they're in the Jeeps and or is it the Ford Explorer? Which one are they driving up and they're stuck in when the Tyrannosaurus Rex comes out?
The Explorers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So when they're in the Explorers and they see that the fence is broken, and it's like, okay, where is this thing at? And then
Right.
when the kids are in the kitchen and the raptors are in there with them, like, there's just so many scenes that are just like you're on the edge of your seat and that kind of thing. Jurassic World, I'd say like one of my favorite parts of it is just like I love the like relationship that they made between Chris Pratt's character and the raptors. I thought it was really neat. And
Oh yeah, that was the third mandate that Spielberg had.
Oh, perfect.
Was that there had to be a human who trained dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was props to him, because that was a great part of it that I liked. So
Yeah. I don't know. They're very much the same movie, but also very much a different movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I like about Jurassic Park a little bit more than Jurassic World is that I wouldn't say that there's like a horror aspect per se, but there's like kind of like very thriller, intense, suspenseful scenes with the raptors where they're like hunting the kids in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
and parts like that where I don't feel like you really get that as much in Jurassic World. I think it's more so just like hardcore big action blockbuster. Like it's a dinosaur that's supposed to be bigger than a T-Rex that's just wreaking havoc on the park.
Right.
Not that like there's a place for that too, and I enjoy that, but it's also like I think it's almost a little more captivating or a little more intense when like the raptors are hunting the kids and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's like the quiet intensity as opposed to like the very loud.
Right.
But like I said, I think one thing that really makes Jurassic Park work is just the fact that it's a fully functioning theme park as opposed to trying to get things up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I don't know. I would say that I don't really have any problems with Jurassic Park per se, but I feel like I do have some issues with Jurassic World.
Like what?
Well, I feel like there are definitely parts in the movie that are just like borderline kind of cheesy. Like and some of that's just on the acting / directing. I don't think it's bad. Not bad enough to take me out of the movie, but there are just a few parts in there where I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But what I don't really care for in Jurassic World is like, okay, for example, in Jurassic Park, everything that happens in the movie is brought up for a bigger payoff, so to speak. So for instance, like you have in the first movie you have the boy or the brother and sister duo and their parents are getting a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
The whole movie they're kind of clinging to Dr. Grant. They want like a firm father figure, but Dr. Grant does not want kids. Like he's very clearly like he even makes a comment to Ellie in the movie that like you want one of those, like just like he's scared of kids. And so as the movie progresses, you know, you see Dr. Grant. I mean, he literally resuscitates Timmy at one point. Like he takes care of these kids. He takes them under his wing and protects them. And by the end of the movie,
he's basically like a father figure.
But yeah, I mean, he is he has no problem with protecting them and being a dad and caring for them. He doesn't find them annoying like he does at the beginning of the movie. And I think the emotional payoff there for the kids, like it resonates a lot more that like their parents are getting a divorce because it's an actual plot point in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
However, in Jurassic Park, the brothers, their parents are getting...
You mean Jurassic World?
Or yeah, thank you. In Jurassic World, the brothers, their parents are getting a divorce, and it's actually brought up at least 3 times in the movie that I can think of off the top of my head. And there's never any significance to the plot in that. Like, the only thing that even comes close to it is that they are like, oh, we want to stay with him. He's cool, talking about Chris Pratt. Like, oh, he's safe.
Right.
But there's never any like emotional connection between them. They actually spend essentially no time with him in the movie. So if you're going to continue to bring up a plot point again and again, which they do, they bring it up at least 3 times in the movie, there needs to be some sort of significance or relevance to the story. And there just isn't. It's just kind of oh, you know, this stinks. Our parents are getting divorced, blah, blah, blah. There's never any actual plot progression because of it.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I take issue with that. But I mean, those are like kind of deep nitpicks. I would say, and this probably sums it up well, that if I'm going to watch Jurassic Park, I feel like it's through and through a Spielberg movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a great story. There's great dialogue. There's great visuals. There's great everything. Whereas in Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, I keep doing that. Jurassic World, it's a Steven Spielberg produced movie. So it's super pretty. It has a lot of magical moments, but I don't feel like it's a movie that can be like deeply engaging. I feel like it's more of a popcorn blockbuster movie. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy those too. I mean, that's essentially what all the live action Transformers movies are, and those are some of my favorite. At least a couple of them. There are some pretty garbage ones in there. But I like blockbuster action movies. There's nothing wrong with it, but they're just 2 very different movies in that regard.
Right. And I mean, I can also like, I really appreciate the differences too, just because like, I mean, before John and I started dating, I don't think that I would have ever watched these movies just because they weren't really, you know, in my interests, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
So if you would have told me like, oh, let's watch Jurassic Park and then Jurassic World, I would have been like, okay, so I know these are both about dinosaurs that wreak havoc. Like, what's going to be the difference between the 2? Like, they're both going to be about dinosaurs eating people and people running away from them, you know?
Right.
But like when you sit down and watch them, like I really appreciate, I mean, all of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World movies, they make them different enough to where like you can really enjoy them and, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say too, one thing, this does not directly relate to what you were saying, but one thing that I think really helps Jurassic World is Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yes.
I think their on-screen chemistry is very genuine. Like I enjoy watching them together. I think like they have a good rapport with each other. They're able to kind of have a good back and forth dialogue, and they're enjoyable characters. Like I don't feel like I ever got annoyed with Claire. Her character's name is Claire in the movie. I don't feel like I ever got annoyed with her on screen. And same with Chris Pratt. I just enjoyed watching them. So
Yeah, I agree. I love Chris Pratt.
yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to cover in comparing these two movies?
The only other thing that I was gonna say was just that I really also loved that they really hit on how smart the Raptors are and that kind of thing, and just like kind of teaching, and I mean, like we've said before, like showing these things and not just straight up telling everything,
Right.
but showing how smart they are, and just like how especially when Chris Pratt is like on the motorcycle, like chasing down the
Indominus Rex.
Indominus Rex, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And he's got the raptors with him, and they're gonna hunt this thing together, and then how they just quickly turn because
right.
the raptor in him. I don't know. It's just pretty cool to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one thing that I think both movies do well is show rather than tell how intelligent the raptors are. I think Jurassic Park does it a little bit better for one reason being that like I think it's just a different way of delivering that information to the audience. So in Jurassic Park, it's a lot more methodical and kind of intense, like quiet, suspenseful, as opposed to in Jurassic World, it's very kind of big action in your face type stuff. And I don't have an issue with either of them. But like in Jurassic Park, the movie actually opens with the raptors, but you never see them. It's just like the raptor paddock opens, or paddock, whatever. The door opens and they're trying to like get one of the employees out, and it attacks one of the employees, and everybody's freaking out, like yelling, shoot her and everything and whatnot. But then like it just continues to build throughout the movie. And like when Dr. Grant is talking at the paleontology dig, he's talking about how smart they are because they hunt in packs. So like if you were ever to run into one in the wild, you would see one face to face and you'd be scared of it trying to get away. And before you could, there are two raptors on either side of you that would actually kill you.
Right.
The one in front of you would be a decoy. And then you have a payoff of that later in the movie when I can't remember the character's name, but he's kind of like the park's muscle, I guess you'd call it. I don't know, the game warden almost. He has a name, but he's the guy that wears a hat that is protecting Dr. Sadler when she tries to get the power back on for the park. He recognizes, he says, hey, we're being hunted, but I'm going to get her, referring to the raptor. You go get the power turned on. And so he sees a raptor in front of him, and he's about to take her down with his shotgun. And then you hear a rustling in the bush next to him, and a raptor jumps out on the side of him. Like there's a payoff there. And then later in Jurassic Park, like the raptors learn how to open a door, just like really subtle displays of the intelligence, as opposed to Jurassic World, which it's still good, but just like how they can take commands and they can work as a pack and follow human instruction, and they can actually, like almost like a bloodhound, like track and, just stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah. Okay, cool. Well, any other beats you want to talk about?
I think that's everything.
Sweet. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're so excited to continue doing this podcast. We're having a lot of fun with it. Next week's episode, we're going to be covering one of our favorite movies, actually our first animated movie.
Yes.
We're going to be covering Pixar's WALL-E.
Yeah. This is probably one of my favorite animated movies of all time.
Yeah, I think Well, we can talk about it more next week. But anyways, you can look forward to that episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about WALL-E. If you liked what you heard, please let us know. We've been really enjoying, like last week, we got a comment on one of our videos, and we appreciate whenever you guys give us a thumbs up on YouTube. One thing you could do that would be very helpful to us and the growth of our channel, or podcast just in general, is if you listen on Spotify, please give us a follow. We have actually made a lot of progress on our Spotify listening platform. I've been looking at the analytics, and if we get a handful more of followers on Spotify, as well as just listening on Spotify in general, we'd actually be eligible to start receiving creator benefits from Spotify. So if you listen on Spotify, please give us a follow. If you're listening on YouTube and you have Spotify, please listen on Spotify, or listen on both, or just follow us. But anyways, we're going to be running some contests here soon, or not contests per se, but more like a giveaway. We're really excited about growing this podcast, so stay on the lookout for more information on that in the upcoming episodes. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and we also have an Instagram and Facebook page. So I believe our Instagram tag is Married to Movies Pod. And then Facebook, just search Married to Movies. But feel free to share those and like and follow those as well.
Yes, especially on Facebook. We just got that page started this week. But if you're on Facebook, look up Married to Movies Podcast, and please like and follow that page as well. And we will definitely be giving out information regarding the giveaways on Instagram and Facebook, but that'll be in upcoming weeks. But thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more, and we hope to hear you. Sorry, guys. I hope that you guys are back with us next week.
All right, see you later.
Bye.